Coming up today, a special council on unification lays out its recommendations to President Park Geun-hye on how to effectively pressure North Korea both militarily and financially with the ultimate aim of reunifying the Koreas. Taking a wait-and-see approach yet again, South Korea's central bank holds its key interest rate steady for a fourth straight month at 1.25%. Plus, 3 South Koreans have been murdered in the Philippines. The 2 men and 1 woman were all shot in the head. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 13th of October. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geun-hye is set to meet with the members of her advisory panel on unification to discuss North Korea-related issues. The council has already submitted its proposal to the president, and they suggest Seoul sharply bolster its military deterrence with the help of the United States and double down on sanctions. Song Ji-sun has the details.
The advisors suggest redeploying U.S. tactical nuclear assets to South Korea to better counter North Korea's nuclear ambitions. The National Unification Advisory Council also says U.S. aerial firepower like the F-22 and B-2 needs to be utilized, and South Korea should establish its own kill chain and Korea air and missile defense at an early date. The advisor said such a move will turn the screw on North Korea by making China more inclined to effectively implement sanctions on its longtime ally. They cited the example of the Soviet Union's fall when the U.S. deployed mid-range nuclear missiles in Europe. It also proposed multi-layered dialogue between the members of 6-party talks for denuclearizing North Korea. That would include bilateral, trilateral, or 5-way talks minus North Korea. It says the talks could be aimed at enforcing additional sanctions and reinforcing existing measures. The report also proposed an evaluation system that would gauge the effectiveness of sanctions on North Korea, adding that sanctions should remain in place for a prolonged period. However, it also says current sanctions are bringing about gradual change in North Korean society. The council says internal division is surfacing, adding that Seoul must prepare for peaceful unification in tandem with tackling North Korea's nuclear issue. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, the North Korean government has heightened domestic security and strengthened surveillance over its people as part of efforts to stop more of their elite fleeing the confines of the repressive regime. Kim Mo-kyun reports.
South Korea-based broadcaster YTN reports that North Korea has 3 different departments solely tasked with quelling public discontent with the government. One is the clerk's office of the Workers' Party. The office is in charge of keeping an eye on the elite class in Pyongyang. It's divided into 2 subdivisions to reinforce the level of surveillance on the upper classes by monitoring how they spend their weekends and snooping into their private lives. The other surveillance arm is the State Security Department.
It protects the North Korean regime. The department keeps an eye on the North Korean people, on the influence of power, and on the flow of information that could threaten its system.
A special team reportedly focuses on observing the whereabouts of the children of North Korean residents in Japan who were forcefully brought to the north as hostages in order to squeeze money from their parents. North Korea has also strengthened surveillance on officials based overseas as a growing number of them have been defecting to the south. The YTN report also says North Korea has also significantly increased the number of on-duty police officers in order to stop possible public demonstrations. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, the White House has labelled the human rights situation in North Korea, quote, deeply, deeply troubling. Press Secretary Josh Earnest said in a briefing Wednesday that even with the toughest sanctions ever imposed on North Korea, the regime seeks to enrich itself at the expense of its civilian population. He said millions of North Koreans face daily extreme poverty while government officials live a life of luxury. Ernest said the North's human rights violations are of deep concern not only to the US, but to any other country and any other person around the world that prioritizes the protection of universal human rights. 3 South Korean nationals have been found dead in the Philippines. This is the 4th such incident in the country this year, and authorities in both countries are working together on the investigation. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Kwon So-ah has the details.
2 Korean men and 1 woman were found dead Tuesday morning. All of them had gunshots to the head and all are believed to be in their 40s or 50s. The incident occurred in the city of Bacolor, some 75 kilometers north of Manila. According to Seoul's foreign ministry Thursday, Korea's embassy in the Philippines was informed by local police that the victims were found at a sugarcane farm. One of the men had his feet tied together and the woman had her wrists bound. Korean officials are currently on site and are expected to work closely with the Philippine authorities. A separate investigative team may also be dispatched. So far, there has been no evidence related to who might have committed the murders. There's also no word on a possible motive. Korea's foreign ministry says this is the 4th such incident this year and brings the number of Koreans killed in the Philippines this year to 6. The number of Korean murder victims in the Philippines has been in the double digits over the past few years. The Filipino government has acknowledged the crime rate for foreigners in the Philippines is high, including murder and burglary. As Koreans have been major targets, the government dispatched its own permanent investigative team to the country earlier this year to work in close cooperation with the Philippines. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korea's Incheon Coast Guard is holding a maritime firearm drill in waters off the western port city of Incheon. This drill is part of an annual 3-day maritime exercise that actually wraps up today. More than 6 patrol ships and 130 crew members are taking part in the drill, which simulated possible altercations between the Coast Guard and fishing vessels. This drill takes place just 1 day after 4 Chinese fishing vessels were captured south of Korea's maritime border, with 2 being apprehended near Baekryong-do Island and another 2 near Jeju Island. Officials say that over 280,000 Chinese vessels have trespassed into Korean waters over the last 5 years, but only 200 have ever been caught. Korea's central bank has held its key rate steady at 1.25% for the month of October. It appears policymakers want to gauge the impact of lingering uncertainties at home and abroad before making their next move. Shin Se-min with the details.
Korea's central bank is weighing its options after announcing it would hold its key rate steady at an unprecedented low of 1.25% at its monthly monetary policy meeting Thursday morning. This marks the 4th consecutive month that the Bank of Korea has held the rate unchanged after its surprise trim in June when it slashed the figure by 25 basis points. The wait-and-see approach is seen as having been influenced by the government's recent expansionary fiscal policy, in which it implemented a budget supplement and vowed to commit an extra $9 billion this year, while also promising to increase spending next year. Thursday's decision also comes on the back of looming worries over the country's mounting household debt, which has frustrated the country's economic growth. Korea's household debt had already risen to a record 1,200 trillion won, or over $1.1 trillion as of the end of June, up 11% from last year. The central bank's decision also comes amid growing expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve will raise its rates by the end of the year. Earlier this month, however, BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol had said that while there's still room for additional rate cuts, monetary policy alone cannot prop up the economy. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, the Bank of Korea has also held its growth outlook for this year steady at 2.7%, but it has cut the outlook for 2017 to 2.8%. That is down by 0.1 percentage point. The central bank's previous growth projection for this year was revised down to 2.7% in July from 2.8% in April. Now, the downgrade for next year comes as the economy really has been struggling to pick up much growth momentum in recent months. Experts say the economy is being weighed down by the government-led corporate restructuring of the nation's ailing shipping and shipbuilding industries. Now, staying with economic news, Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors have seen their combined global sales drop this year from the year before. This marks the first decrease since 1998, when Korea was hit extremely hard by the Asian financial crisis. The world's fifth largest automaker, Hyundai Motor, and its sister company Kia Motors sold slightly over 5.6 million cars in the January to September period this year. That's down nearly 2% from a year ago. Sales drop comes due to sluggish demand abroad, especially in emerging markets like China, where local brands shielded by strong price competitiveness are growing fast. The end of a recent consumption tax cut at home also dragged sales down. Samsung Electronics has begun its recall of the ill-fated Galaxy Note 7 smartphone, offering a full refund or exchange to its customers. If you are an owner of the device, our Kwon Jung-ho has the details of what you need to know.
After one exchange program failed to solve the crisis of the Fire Pro and Galaxy Note 7, Samsung Electronics is now killing off the troubled smartphone. Users are warned to turn off their device and return it to their telecoms retailer, where they'll be offered a full refund or an exchange to another device. In Korea, starting Thursday, customers can receive a full refund from their network providers through the end of the year. They can also choose to exchange their device with other Samsung models, such as the Galaxy S7, S7 Edge, or the Note 5. All customers will be provided with gift cards worth around $25, and those switching to another Samsung model will be given a voucher for $60 towards their phone bill. Any free accessories that were originally bundled with their device, such as the Gear VR, can be kept. Customers will also be allowed to change telecom providers if they so wish. Customers should get in touch with the relevant retailer for further details, including insurance plans and stock of exchanged devices. Recall programs in other countries have also begun, including the US, where all major carriers are also offering full refunds or exchanges, including full refunds on all related Note 7 accessories. Samsung is also working with online retailers such as eBay to facilitate exchanges for its customers. Users in other territories are encouraged to get in touch with their relevant retailers, as specific details on refunds and exchanges could differ in their markets. Kwon Jung-ho, Arirang News.
Now, the campaign chairman of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign says the FBI is looking into allegations Russia hacked into his emails. John Podesta says the investigation is part of a wider probe regarding possible Russian ties linked to the leaking of emails from Clinton's senior campaign staff. He claims Russia is trying to influence the US presidential election in favor of Donald Trump. Podesta also said Trump's camp might have had advanced knowledge that the leaks were in the pipeline. The whistleblowing website WikiLeaks has been releasing thousands of Podesta's emails since last Friday, with some containing material potentially damaging to Clinton's campaign. Russia has rejected US claims that it's behind the leaks. Policymakers at the US Federal Reserve have agreed that a rate hike would be warranted relatively soon if the US economy continues to strengthen, according to the minutes from the Fed's September meeting released on Wednesday local time. Several officials indicated it would be appropriate to raise rates at least once before the end of the year. However, others thought that the Fed should wait for more convincing evidence that inflation was moving toward its 2% objective. Last month, the Federal Open Market Committee left the benchmark lending rate unchanged in a range of 0.25% to 0.5% for the sixth straight meeting. The Fed last raised rates in December 2015 after keeping them near zero for several years after the 2008 financial crisis. Back here in Korea, and the nation's biggest sales event appears to have paid dividends for the nation's major retailers. The Trade Ministry says duty-free stores posted sales that were nearly 30% higher during the Korea Sale Festa event than the Korea Black Friday event that was held at this time last year. Korea's department store chains also saw their sales surge almost 9% from last year. The figures were also given a boost thanks to an influx of Chinese visitors, as Beijing's week-long National Day holiday coincided with the shopping event. Roughly 340 retailers, manufacturers and online malls took part in the event, offering discounts and promotions at tens of thousands of stores nationwide. Now, although the shopping event has come to an end, the accompanying schedule of cultural events will extend through the end of the month, while a separate sales period is underway for foreigners only. Well, that's all we have for now on this Thursday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for tuning in. We will be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next bulletin is coming up at 2 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.